Hey everyone, Internet TCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about The City and Its Uncertain World by Haruki Murakami. I don't think Haruki Murakami needed much introduction since he is most likely the most famous Japanese literature author of our generation. His claim to fame comes with Norwegian Wood, a story about young adult in Tokyo that had to deal with the changing times and loss during 60s Tokyo. It's a really touching coming of age story with a hint of romance to it, but while that novel is his most read one, it's also the one that is least Haruki Murakami as novel. It's basically him trying to write a different genre than usual and did a great job at it. His usual genre is magical realism, where weird things happen in the story, like in Kafka on the Shore for example, which is basically a retelling of the Greek Oedipus story, complete with incest in it. In the story, there's a stone that needs to be flipped and an old man that can talk to cat and change the weather to rain face. It's weird and it's normal at the same time. That's Haruki Murakami. And speaking of retelling, this book is a retelling of the short story he had called The City and Its Uncertain World that has been retold again in a full novel called Hard Boy Wonderland at the End of the World. I've heard of movies and games being remade, but this might be the first time I've seen an author remake the novel he wrote. And I've decided to read the book because of that, and coupled by a story written by Haruki Murakami, who is an author whose book I have the love-hate relation with, which I'll talk about later. But first, let's get to the story, which begins with two nameless young couple walking with each other near the river. The girl sat down and told a story to the boy about a small city surrounded by walls. That city is where her real body is. The one that is here with the boy is a fake body, a wandering shadow. Yes, this book starts with the strangeness early. The wandering shadow then said that the real her worked in a library in that town, near the clock tower with no hand. Not everyone can enter there, but the boy should be able to if he fulfills the qualification, which is to truly wish to meet her. In a way, that is her way of saying, please come seek for me. And not just the library is hard to access. The city where the library belongs had walls surrounding it, so it's difficult to even enter the city. But if he can enter, the boy can become a dream reader there where he'll read other people's dreams in the library. If it sounded like a 16-year-old making shit up, it's because it is. Part of the charm of the author writing style is how these absurdities become a reality, because in their current real world, they're just high schooler who goes to a different school and live in a different town. Two trains away difference. But despite the distance, they've decided to start going out with each other and they've become a couple for 8 months since then. They talk about all sort of things, but after the first mention of the town, that's what she mostly talked about while he wrote it in his notebook. The city with walls surrounding it had a giant guards guarding the gate, and golden furred beasts with one horn or unicorns marked the change of season there because time works differently there. But the girl had a family in this world. Her mother died of cancer and her father remarried, but she felt closer with her stepmother than her biological father, and the closest person in her family is her grandmother. But her stepmother doesn't like it if she visited her grandmother, so she visited her less and less until one day she suddenly passed away. With a background like that, it's not all that weird to make up a story about some random city where time doesn't exist. And for the main character itself, as usual with Haruki Murakami, is an average-ass boy with an average-ass background and average-ass skill set, except he likes spending time in the library and read books there. Again, hints that the town and its library might be made up. But the next thing we know, the boy has turned into a man, and he's inside the city finding the library in house number 16 in front of the old bridge, just like how the girl described it. And inside he found the librarian, the real version of the girl who has lost her memory of the boy. And because this is Haruki Murakami, the girl is still 16-year-old even when the boy has turned into a man by the time he reaches the library. Thankfully, at least in this book, unlike usually, Haruki Murakami doesn't force a sex scene here. And that's how the storytelling of the book goes. It moves back and forth in between time and in between world when the man was a boy and when he has grown and reached the city inside the world. Our main character managed to apply for the dream reader job because he has changed his eyes before coming in, eyes that are specifically used to read dreams. But maybe it's because he's not used to it yet, the dreams are fragmented and hard to read, like those dreams that you forgot right after you wake up, only remembering that you had a dream. Back in the past, because the couple met from receiving a writing award from their school, they often wrote letters to each other. The girl often wrote about the dreams that she had in this letter, and the girl has always put her dreams as something that is more important than the reality that she lived in. But since none of her family and friends understand why she did that, she usually wrote them and never shared them. One of the reasons why she decided to say yes to the boy's invitation was because he seemed like he cares about her dream. He asked about them and listened to them seriously. While she often wrote about her dreams, the story is often unfinished because she liked to go on a tangent and then forgot to continue the story of the dream. Maybe because outside, everyone had their shadow. In the walled city, that's not the case. To enter the city, you have to give up on your shadow. When the man first arrived there, the gatekeeper told him this, and when he agreed, the gatekeeper ripped the shadow from the man, leaving it lifeless near the gate. The girl said that the shadow was dark thoughts that will one day die on its own once it was separated from its person. One day when the boy went to their usual dating spot, the girl was late and very quiet. They took a walk in silence because the boy had no idea what to say since this is his first relationship, and after taking a long walk, they went back to the park where silently, the girl just cried on his shoulder as he's feeling helpless not being able to comfort her. Meanwhile, because the man cannot practice reading dreams for too long each day because it tires his eye, he went around the city to investigate it, going from walls to draw the shape of the city and finding places that looks abandoned, like people used to live there but have been forgotten by the rest of the city who live on the other side of the city. It was during this investigation that he felt sick and one of the old men who lived nearby took care of him, telling him a story about his obsession with looking at another side of a ghost face that he saw and his regret at looking at it, as if it's a warning to not try to see the true form of the city. But eventually he recovered from his fever and eventually he got better at dream reading. It is now winter in the city and the unicorns started dying one another. The man decided to visit the gatekeeper and the gatekeeper took him to see his shadow. The man and his shadow talked just for a bit because he don't want his shadow to reattach himself back to him. Back to the past, the girl calmed down after crying for a bit, and because she felt that it was because of the boy that she felt better, she decided to share about the city for the first time, a city that was surrounded by walls. And each time they met, she told him more and more about the city, work building it and adding more details to the city, until one day she stopped sending letters and she stopped seeing him. Time passed until one day one giant stack of letters comes from the girl. It's something of a goodbye letter from a dying shadow, something that is also happening to the man's shadow in the future. Separated from his real body, the shadow of the man is dying and he is begging to become one again with him, to go back to the outside world while casting doubt to the world and their lives. And the man kinda agreed with his shadow. The people in this city doesn't feel like they're alive. He eventually agreed to help his shadow to get out of the city and they managed to plan an escape. But while escaping, the man decided to stay in the city anyway since there is nothing outside of the city wall that he wanted to be, so only the shadow went out while the man got back into the city where the girl lived. Back in the past, the boy finally grew from high school to college and to work until his 40s. He decided to quit after finding work no longer fulfilling, and it was then that he dreamed of a library that seemed significant, so he decided to find work in a library. He asked for a favor from a friend to find him some work in a library that is in a mountain area, and when he went there, he found things that he had only saw in his dream. We are at the second part of the book in this library, and unlike the first part where we go back and forth between the past and the future, this time the story stays in the library where the man works and where he get to know other people in the library. It's genre almost turning into slice of life. The only thing that doesn't feel like pure slice of life is the former head librarian that is teaching the man to become a head librarian there one day confessed to him that he actually is already dead. That's why he had no shadow. He's a ghost. But other than that, there is a very abrupt tonal shift in the story that feels like it belonged in another book, or at least made it feel like a short stories collection that barely had any relation with one another. But eventually in the library, the man met a boy who is definitely on the neurodivergent spectrum, a savant that reads all the time, won't talk to most people, and can know the day you were born after you tell him your date of birth. The boy known in the story as the boy with yellow submarine parka is also called by the city, and he wanted to become a dream reader in the walled city because he had no place in this world. And with the information that he got from the man that we now know is actually the shadow of the man that have escaped the city, the boy with the yellow submarine parka arrived at the city where the man now is ready to leave it and the girl in order to become one again with his shadow and live in the outside world, ending the story of the book. It's definitely an interesting story. There is a lot of the story that feels like a metaphor for something else, river that exists throughout the story, whether it's on the boy and the girl date when they were young, the one place in the walled city you can escape from, or the dream that the man had where he became younger while walking in the direction against the flow of the river. Then there's a conversation to be had about what made the people in the city to go there, abandoning their shadow, and what is the difference between people with shadow and people without shadow, because there's not much difference actually. And these little things eventually feels like a big metaphor of moving on with your life, finding new places and new people that connect you to the world outside of your own. I do still wish that the author would just write different characters. If you've read more than one Haruki Murakami work, you know what I'm talking about. All his main characters are the same characters just in different stories, and all the girl characters are usually just the main character love interest and that's it. And if you add that with the genre being the same over and over again, magical realism, it really made Haruki Murakami feels like a one-trick pony at times after you read a bunch of his works. It doesn't help that this is a remake of a remake, and parts of it you know you've read before reading this book. I still enjoy reading this, but in the back of my mind there's always this snaking talk that wish that the author wrote someone else that is not this guy, this passive guy, lost, looking and waiting for the right situation to happen. I give this a 3.5. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.